Hey everybody, it's Leslie Dale for the TFP, and yeah, you guys always catch me by surprise, so good afternoon. Joining us is Shakeem Holloway, our web producer. My new phone, the 7 Plus.
Yay! It's really nice, actually.
Yeah.
Coming from an Android user.
Yeah, it's telling me that Chattanooga Times Free Press is live right now.
Are we?
That's what the...
Yeah. Oh, hey!
Introduce yourself if you don't need an introduction.
I'm Ellis Smith. I am work on the digital team here with these two fine people.
Fine people. But that was a fun little hello, but we're going to get serious about some stories today. Alleged discrimination going on in Chattanooga. Yeah. So, our reporter Joy Smith wrote a story that you can check out right now on the web or in the paper. Black families rejected for home loans at higher rate than whites in Chattanooga. A study finds. So, Chattanooga banks award only a fraction of the home purchase loans they originate to black families, and black families' applications for these home loans are rejected at a much higher rate than those of white and Hispanic families, according to this new study. The findings in the report, compiled using the Public Records Bank's report to the Community Reinvestment Act and Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, show wide racial disparity in the community and that race matters when getting a loan.
So to put a finer point on it, well, 1/3 of people in Chattanooga are black. But according to the report, First Tennessee gave only one conventional home loan to a black family in the last 4 years. Capital Mark gave only one conventional loan to a black family within the same time frame. So when they say a fraction, they're talking about like a pretty small fraction.
Very small, crazy.
In broader terms, I think the study says that within that 3-year period, I think banks in Chattanooga afforded over 8,000 home loans, but only 400 or so went to black families.
They received a total of 430 of the 8,464 loans awarded in the time period Shakeem was just talking about.
Now, there are a couple caveats with this report. You'll notice that we use the word conventional home loan. There are all sorts of home loans that fall outside the definition. The conventional home loans under a federal rule are required to be reported, become a public record, and therefore can be examined by this report. However, there's a whole wide variety of loans that are backed by all sorts of institutions, nonprofits, things like that, that don't fall under this, and so we can't look at those numbers. So we don't know what those numbers show. We only know what's being reported here. So that's important to keep in mind when we talk about this. These are conventional loans. The other, the exact terminology is government-backed and other secondary markets. So what that means is that data wouldn't be reflected in the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act and not captured in the report. That's a long way of saying is that this is only part of the picture, for what it's worth. So, a little caveat there.
Our reporter Joy went out and spoke with some presidents of these banks, several of them, First Tennessee, Regions. So you can read, the explanations are very lengthy. So you can read those on the website. But for example, Jeremy King, a spokesman in the Regions corporate office, said the financial institute has been committed to lending to a diverse range of customers and has strategies for doing so, such as establishing a consumer lending diversity chapter to assess and develop ways to better reach more community members. As one example, Regions has invested in various affordable housing communities to help meet needs in the greater Chattanooga-area. King said that, again, as a spokesman from Regions' corporate office. So, I mean, my question is, why are these numbers so alarming? And I don't really see an answer from any of the bank's corporate folks. So there's that question, and then there's a question of how to turn this around. A black community leader in East Chattanooga says, I think this is just so unfair. There needs to be more thoughts by the local government about how we service all the community, not just concentrate on what we're going to do to put downtown a better, greater attraction for tourists. So that person, James Moreland, obviously feels that not enough focus is on this. And I'm sure there's so many different opinions. What do you think, Shakeem?
Well, the article goes on to talk about, the groups and some of the leaders that are working to fix it. And they believe that the problem is systemic. And there are many advocacy groups that have tried to, help make housing more affordable, for low-income families, and that also has a big factor in the disparity between the 400 and the 8,000.
Right. That's hard to hear for anybody. Local groups like you talked about wanting city government to do something. According to Mayor Andy Burke's minority-owned business task force, they're talking with diverse leaders in the financial sector around issues that impact home loans and access to business capital. Mayor Burke said that task force will present its findings to the community in a few months. So we'll stay on that. It seems like according to our reporting, that there's a disconnect between these banks and the actual people and communities, the black communities here, who are trying to get these loans. It sounds like it would be a good idea if maybe these leaders, at least, or community members or people applying for loans could actually speak with the people making these decisions. It seems like you have all these community leaders talking about it, this local government, Mayor Burke, but how does it get fixed, or how are the concerns actually heard, in person, like that face-to-face? So do you think that could ever happen?
It's possible.
It is important to note that you can bring a lawsuit on this. If you feel like you're being discriminated against, people can bring lawsuits under this act. Governments and lending institutions can be sued under the Fair Housing Act for housing and lending practices that have a disparate impact on protected classes of people. So what that means, that's a lawyerly way of saying that it doesn't matter what your intentions are, if the impact of your actions causes, no matter what, whether it's women or people of color or whatever, but if it has an impact on those people that is different from impact on other groups, you can be sued under this act. And that was actually kind of a landmark decision, because typically in the past you had to prove intent. You had to prove, like, hey, these guys got together and decided they were going to discriminate, and we have the emails to prove it, therefore we're going to sue them. But now you don't have to do that anymore. You only have to prove, as this report seems to state, for conventional loans anyway, that black families are getting either rejected for loans or not being approved for these loans. So certainly banks, in the past, they could have said, well, that's the way the cookie crumbles, or these rules are, preventing us from doing that. But now they really have to take a close look at this and say, okay, what is the impact? Whatever the cause, it doesn't matter. What the impact here is affecting people of color, and we need to do something about it. And it'll be interesting to see if anybody does take advantage of that and sues them, because they could be ordered by a judge to change their practices in order to reduce this impact.
And talking about getting up to that Supreme Court level, the National Community Reinvestment Coalition in D.C., the president says, if I were president of one of Chattanooga's local banks, I would be really worried. So
yeah. And somebody asked, why is Erlanger in the headline of this?
Learning.
Which is an interesting segue. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. So, this story has a lot of meat to it. We're going to move on from it. The black families rejected for home loans. So you need to read it. Go to our website or grab the paper. Lots of information here, thanks to our reporter, Joy Smith. So we're going to move on to Erlanger, what we're talking about at Erlanger. Shakim, you want to start with this one?
Yeah, there's a proposed land swap between Lincoln Park and the city, with the city of Chattanooga and Erlanger for land in Lincoln Park and Alton Park. Currently, that area, that Lincoln Park, is owned by Erlanger. They've allowed.
So you see the park. Lincoln Park actually
Where
isn't.
Is it?
It actually doesn't belong to the Lincoln Park neighborhood.
No,
it belongs to. Even though it's right there, it belongs to.
Where
Erlanger.
is right there?
If you're facing Erlanger from the street, it's on the right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's it's right around Central. And actually,
In a
all this is
predominantly
tied
black
up.
community.
Yeah, this is a historic community. It's this park has a lot of I don't remember the names, but there's a bunch of people who have grown up
Satchel
here.
Paige and Jackie
Robinson,
Robinson,
that's
two
the one.
baseball
Yeah.
legends, have played at that park.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've heard of it now. I know what you're
And
talking
this
about.
all kind of started with
Here, show this
the
too.
idea of extending Central Avenue. They wanted to take Central Avenue and extend it to Amnicola Highway so that ambulances wouldn't have to drive all the way around that area. The problem is to extend it, you basically have to go right through, smack dab through the middle of this neighborhood. So this has all been, but the city needs to get a hold of it. The Department of Transportation. There's all these investigations. Well, meanwhile, the people who live there, they want to use their park, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, the two sides have been bickering. Kind of bubbling for about 20 years or so, 30 years. They said,
been a long discussion.
Post, segregation.
So what's going on with it? I showed this trespassing sign. So the park has a trespassing sign up like this right now. As Shaquem mentioned, it's a historically black park, and these residents say security has been forcing them from their neighborhood off their park. But some people say they've been allowing white children from outside their neighborhood to play there.
There's a video.
There's a video.
Recently, there was a big fuss over.
Who took the video? A resident?
Was it Tiffany Rankins? Or
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Tiffany, if you're watching.
Some residents wanted to come and organize there, and just have kind of like a rally or whatever. And they talked to Erlanger, and Erlanger denied them. Then Erlanger said that they didn't give them notice soon enough. They said it was a couple days before, which was too late, but. Then they came back and said, no, we notified you 2 weeks before.
Yeah,
and then
you lost the paperwork or something. Yeah, that's not our fault.
And then, I think it was October 1st, the trespassing sign was put up. And after that, members of the community saw a group of white people, white friends, they were out there playing.
It was like the
in the
next
park.
day, which
Yeah,
you can imagine how
kickball.
galling that is, because Erlanger's been, to amplify what Shaquem is saying, Erlanger's been making the residents of that neighborhood apply for a permit each and every time. Is it a gathering of more than 10 people? I think. Yes. Anytime they want to have a gathering of more than 10 people, they have to apply for a permit and get insurance as well, which that can be, you got to go through to get event insurance. I've had to do this before for a wedding.
Me too.
You got to go through your homeowner's insurance. You have to go sign up. There's a fee associated with that. I think it was like $75. So whatever the value of the equipment is in the park, and that's Erlanger's worried about liability. They say. Yeah. But then the residents, when you get rejected, and then you see a bunch of people who don't live there hanging around in the park and playing dodgeball or whatever,
right?
And security guards aren't doing anything.
Yeah. So on October 2nd, this video, I haven't seen it, but shows young white men and women playing kickball, like you mentioned, with no interference from security guards. Yeah. Is it clear whether or not they got this sort of insurance, or? I mean, I'm not seeing that in the story.
I don't think they state that explicitly.
So that's
Erlanger did apologize. They said apparently, I guess it's implied by Erlanger's apology that there was a desperate impact there, because they did apologize and said the security guards weren't properly. What was it? They said they hadn't been given clear instructions or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the role the city of Chattanooga plays in this is that they are now attempting to swap land, Lincoln Park, for land in Alton Park, so that now it can be kind of go back to normal, and the community of Lincoln Park won't have to worry about those things, dealing with Erlanger and the bickering, the back and forth that's been going on.
So
hopefully by the end of the year, the land swap. It's been delayed currently, but hopefully by the end of the year
can be made final.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, the city getting it, though, keep in mind, they're still planning on running a highway through the middle of it, so that's not exactly going to be the saving grace for the park as it stands now. So I don't know. I mean, that's the long-term plan is they want to extend Central Avenue to Amnicola and then all the way to the interstate, I think, on the other side. And that's it's been in the works for years. We've written about it so many times.
More construction, people.
Yeah. But they want that to be more of a central avenue that you can use to kind of navigate the city, both for emergency, especially with the city's public hospital being right there, for ambulance service, to be able to kind of get people to get the care they need. As well as just to kind of make the city's traffic flow a little bit better. So, it's part of, that's one of the tough things about being in charge of the government is you've got, this community, this very vocal community.
Don't want to be.
Really loves their park. And so how do you balance that against what you see as these other needs? We've got Erlanger saying we got to run our ambulances. You've got people getting stopped up in traffic, and and so you're okay. What's the greater good or the lesser evil here? I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to decide that.
There are these people who feel like they're being discriminated against because they're black in their neighborhood. So that's the real issue, and that's what the story is about. So we have these two stories on the web. How are they doing right now, Shaquem?
I believe they're both in the top 5. I believe The bank story is our second leading story, or it was our second leading story last time I checked. And I know the city of Chattanooga will take back Lincoln Park. I think that's one of our top 5 stories today.
Okay, so Shaquem controls all of the web traffic, and he lets us know what you're looking at. Post any more questions? Do we have any more comments or questions?
Yeah, we do.
That are valid.
Kind of a technical question from
Okay.
David Sharp. He says, "What are the numbers for loans denied, and how is credit, cash flow, assets, and liability considered? Is this more of a reflection of our banks or our community as a whole?"
It's a good question.
It's a good question. So who would be the person to answer that question?
Joy Smith.
Joy Smith.
No, you can actually.
No, I
you can.
mean-
Okay, there's a couple
Do
of
you know
answers.
her?
There's a couple of answers there. You can. The entire report is. We went ahead and uploaded that to our website. So if you want to get into like super nitty gritty detail, you can. Like all that's available. Secondly, these are public records. So let's say you're like, well, I don't really buy the report. I don't really believe that. You can actually go get these numbers yourself as well and double check our work. But as to the broader question, is this more of a reflection on the banks or our community as a whole? I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think it's probably a bit of both, because the community, it's the black community. It's naturally, it's your low income community. So low income. I know me and you talked about this earlier. When the recession happened, banks were told to, give loans to people.
They said
who were,
increase the standards because you gave loans to a lot of people who couldn't pay them off. They were foreclosed upon,
Right.
and then
So across the board.
So you have a housing crisis. You've got a bunch of
Across the
homes
board.
sitting there empty because people couldn't afford because you were making loans. What do they call them? No ninja loans. No income, no job.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah, I just know that everybody couldn't get a loan after that.
Yeah.
And so then they really tightened up, and so you had to be basically have a super duper credit rating, like over 750 or something ridiculous like that.
And then a lot of people argue that's how it should always have been.
Yeah, but now there are calls to go ahead and loosen that up, which in many ways we're kind of going back around in a big circle here. To kind of loosen that up and allow low income folks to get more loans. However, to address that point a little bit, they did look at that. They said in the report, they said, okay, is it just low income people who are being affected like this? And a lot of our African American community happens to fall under that. Well, it actually, I believe it was 20% of low income people got loans, but only, I don't remember the number, but only a small fraction of those people were black. So they did look at that. So that's a good question. But there was still an effect on black people, even when you account for the low income designation there. So that's kind of getting in the weeds a little bit, but it's definitely an important point. I think for me the bigger point is the things that are not counted in this report. And this is the curse of being a reporter, is that if you want to base something off public records, you're really constrained by what's in those records. So if the government collects data from the A data set but not the B data set, and you report on what's out there, you don't know what's not in the public records. And in this case, we have records on the conventional loans. We don't have the records on the all the other types
Right.
of unconventional loans, loans that are backed by not our banks, whether it's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or nonprofits. Another thing to consider is apartments. One of the banks, I can't remember which one, in there, they said, okay, yeah, we didn't give a lot of home loans, but we did give loans for the Douglas Heights or something.
Right.
We gave loans to this apartment complex or that apartment complex, and so we're creating housing in that way. So looking only at single-family homes, again, you're looking at an important and significant slice of the picture, but it's not the only slice. So
Right, or like Region said, they invested in various affordable housing communities, and then some of them are arguing, like you mentioned, that the average family income for a black family is half that of a white family in Chattanooga.
they look at.
So there's a lot of factors, and I would be really interested to look at those other loans that aren't here for us right now. So this kind of story is really hard to report on and to decipher and to draw your own conclusions from. So that's why you should read it all.
Yeah.
And look at that report, because we have that linked.
Yeah, we'll have it linked.
Right.
Soon if it's not linked right now.
Yeah, I think it is.
We did have a question. What property in Alton Park is being traded? I think we have that in the story. Paula Miller asked that question. Thanks for your question, Paula.
Our reporter, Steve Johnson, who's a great reporter, wrote this, so let's find
We have that for you.
property. Yeah. in Alton Park.
They didn't. I don't think they specified what property in Alton Park. They just said land.
It says
in Alton
Erlanger's
Park.
Board of Trustees already has voted to swap the Lincoln Park site with the city for land in Alton Park.
Yeah, they didn't specify.
Okay, so it does not say exactly where.
But we'll find that out. That's actually a really good
it's a
question
really
that we
good
should
question.
have. The other question that I had when I read that was, why does Erlanger want land in Alton Park? What are they planning on doing there? So that might be
That's another good
might be
question.
another interesting follow up. So I'm going to answer your question with that question.
Man,
Right,
we
how about
need
that?
to get out there. We need to get
check
out
this
there.
out.
Yeah. And, well, I think we were talking about government too, like with all of these stories, like who in government would be the one to address this or want to address all of these concerns. And I said, I wouldn't be. But, speaking of government, somebody wants to be the president. Big time. Yeah. And y'all have heard more than enough about that since Friday, I'm sure.
Who watched the debate last night? Oh, not me.
I watched
She did.
it's hard for me to watch, but in and out, and I watched it so I could talk about it with you. That's the
I
reason
watched
I watched
football.
it. I also went to the Jennifer Nettles concert, which was awesome at the Tivoli. So I think that was a lot.
You had a full weekend.
I did. Yes, I did. Hey, TL. Okay, getting off subject like I always do, but we're going to talk about the debate with our opinions folks here at the Times Free Press. Ellis, do you want to explain that a little bit when we have, editorial people come in?
Yes.
It's different from being a reporter.
Some people will see a tweet from us or a Facebook post and they'll say, the Times Free Press is biased. Why don't you post both sides? Well, okay. Great. And actually, we appreciate you being engaged, and because we don't want to be biased. And if we actually have a news story come out that seems to favor one side or another, we want to hear from you. But you got to keep it in perspective that we have an opinion section as well. Now, in that opinion section, we have things on the left and things on the right. We actually have editorial page writers
Cooper's
for both
eye
sides.
on the left.
Yeah.
Clint Cooper.
He's our right-wing guy, our
guy.
conservative, our Republican, and then we have Pam Sohn. She's our left-wing woman. She's a liberal,
Strong, smart,
yeah,
liberal woman.
She's a liberal. She's a Democrat. They
Yes.
both post things, separate stories, and posting one doesn't mean we're supporting that position. It means we actually end up posting all of them. So just because you see the one thing in your feed at that one instant, it doesn't mean that the other one isn't posted right below it or right above it. So we'll post both of them. We'd love to get them together in the same room, get them to talk
We're
about
going
things.
to do that at about 2 o'clock today. And then Ellis and I are reporters. So for me as a reporter, and people have different, definitions of what they think being a reporter is, but I feel like I'm observing people, and like this debate, I watch it and I'm telling you what happened. So we don't have personal opinions in that. Just telling you what we observed factually.
I think it's high entertainment.
It's like sports.
Yeah, it is like a sporting event in
It's
a way.
like
Gladiators
Real Housewives.
enter into the
It's
ring.
like Real Housewives.
It makes me nervous. It makes
Is what
me
it's
I watched the entirety of the first debate because I knew we were going to be talking about it, and I was like sweating. I was
Kind of
like,
like when
I
you watch
can't
The
do
Office
this.
for the first time, you didn't realize what kind of humor it was
Yes.
going to be, and it's like that awkwardness
It's a
that
little
you start to feel that
I can't watch those Real Housewives shows. It like stresses me out.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like,
exactly.
woo, can we just chill?
we have
But-
some really educated. Can I
Okay,
get
yeah,
another question
yeah.
here? You are really smart people out there, people of our Facebook community.
Thank you.
Rachel Nelson wants to know what everybody's credit score is. She says for most loans you have to have a 700, except with the VA loan. This is according to Rachel. I'm not
Okay.
saying this. You have to have a 600. Then they look at your debt ratio to make sure you can even qualify for the loan. So she's I guess,
wondering what
touching
the
on some of
credit
those
score
things
would
that
have
you were
to be.
talking about, which is that. And again, this is information that I wish we had because I think it would be interesting. But what were the reasons behind some of these?
Well, I'm sure, like
Loan.
Rachel said, credit score always plays a part
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
getting a loan,
Your-
as well as your income,
how
like
much
we
debt
talked
you already
about.
have.
Because income
Right.
kind of correlates
Yeah.
with that credit score sometimes. If you
Right.
make more income, you have a higher credit score usually.
Definitely, and I don't have the specification for the
Yeah.
credit score in this story, and I'm sure, like Ellis, I'm sure there's so
Well, it's different.
many. Yeah,
It's, your credit score.
Right.
So let's say you have a lower credit score, but you're a millionaire. Okay,
Right.
they don't care about your credit score. In fact, you can probably just pay cash for your
Pay
home.
cash.
But let's say, or you've got some other form of income. Maybe you have some investments that are paying dividend income. So all these things balance. It's actually really complicated. If you've ever gotten a home loan and you remember all the conversations, all
Yeah.
the paperwork you had to do.
Will make you never not want to pay a
it's
bill
like
again.
the most work I've ever done in my life.
I know. No thanks.
And it was like they were doing me a favor when I'm going to end up paying them back. In fact,
that's what they want you to think.
That gets into part of why I was kind of like scratching my head at this, because like, why would you discriminate? You're going to give someone $100,000 and they're going to pay you back $150,000. Like,
because they want them to pay them back.
Yeah. Well, right.
Yeah.
There's a risk. There's a risk thing that they're looking at there. So there's certainly, if you were discriminating for no other reason than to discriminate, you would be a very stupid banker. I think it's safe to say, because you'd be cutting yourself off from your main source of income, which is people paying off their loans every month. So there's definitely more to this story, and we'll definitely follow that up for sure. So thanks for all your intelligent questions.
Yeah, thanks.
And the unintelligent questions. I appreciate those as well.
I don't. Just kidding. Okay, how about you, Shaquem? These two stand up for me all the time with some comments. So.
Oh yeah. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. You know, we're trying to be more engaged with you guys. You know, so leave your comments. You know, on Twitter, on Facebook, we appreciate them all. We'll try to give more feedback and engage with you guys.
Yeah, we do want to engage with you more. We're going to focus on that, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of comments coming when we talk Trump, Hillary,
the debate. Stay tuned.
Yeah, talk about that recording too. We are.
All right. Adios.